Hey there, I'm Becky.
And I'm Lindsay.
And we finally hit record on our candid conversations around conscious parenting.
We're here to talk about all of it.
Ugly parts included.
And share our raw experiences and imperfect insights as we're doing parenting.
Pretty conscious.
In our very first episode, Becky and I talk about what led up to Pretty Conscious existing in the first place. We talk about what's so rich and sweet here that we want to share. All right, let's dive in.
Hello.
Hi. Happy first episode.
Let's do it again.
Happy second episode. Happy second attempt at first episode.
First episode 2.0.
For context, we did this once already today.
And in true, we're going to start a podcast form. It didn't record properly and we lost it. So here we are again. We're going to do it again. It's okay because it felt fun and playful.
Yeah.
There's part of me that's frustrated, but it's going to be great.
Mm-hmm. And I'm happy. Yeah. I would much rather sit and do it another time than stop and reset another day.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I'm happy to be here.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, that was frustrating. Okay. Where do we begin?
I know.
Where did we start?
We started with we got together when we solidified we're doing this. We're gonna do Pretty Conscious and start a podcast. And we got together and did some mind mapping of just sort of our intentions and what we want to create and our values and all of that for Pretty Conscious and doing it together. And we both mind mapped separately. And then we it was really fun to get to read each other and then go through and highlight and underline the things that resonated and talk about it. So we did that, and then we co-created one mind map together for Pretty Conscious. And we started with an initial centerpiece. Central theme. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the way that I learned to mind map, the starting point is a now that this is happening, speaking very present tense. And then creating branches off from there to help really build out the picture of what is new and different now that XYZ. And so, yeah, the one that we ended up reconciling and coming to as our unified, although they were very similar already to begin. But we came to this point where the central point is now that we are confidently sharing what is so rich and sweet here. And I'm looking over at it over there on the bed. Now that we're sharing what's so rich and sweet here.
Yeah.
That was the starting point into all of the different branches. And as we were talking about what we wanted our first episode to be, initially I think we had both thought we would be talking about that mind map.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about it more, it's more context for the what is so rich and sweet here.
Yeah.
Why are we even here doing this?
Yeah.
The mind map itself was more about setting the container for what is it? What is Pretty Conscious?
Yeah.
What are the core values of Pretty Conscious, and the intentions around it? And all of that requires a little more context and backstory about who are we? Why are we sitting here doing this?
Yeah. And how did we get to a place where we want to share something that's rich and sweet here? And here we mean between the two of us.
Yeah.
And totally. In this point in time. So should I jump back and start at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start at the beginning. So I was working with a therapist, and I had been working with her for a little while, and she had a goal for me. It was kind of a secret goal, but I knew about it. To make friends, because at the time I didn't really have any close friends. And she had recommended the Peanut app, which for those who don't know, it's a dating app for moms where you literally create a profile and swipe left and right on people. And so I did, and I swiped for a while. I for more context, I'd never done dating apps because Tyler and I have known each other since junior high. So my husband and I have been dating since the end of our senior year in high school. So no dating apps for me.
Yeah.
So that was like a novel experience. But yeah, like swiping, I like chatted with a few people, but like nothing that really like sparked enough courage in me to like actually be like, let's meet up. Mm-hmm. And luckily my good friend Lindsay now had the courage, and she reached out and was just like, hey, like we seem like there's maybe some alignment. I found that it works better if we just like meet in person and sort of see how it goes.
Yeah. And you up for that?
Yeah. And yeah, it was my first time actually like going and meeting with somebody on the Peanut app. And so yeah, we did, and we went for a walk. And I know you were saying that you like had almost canceled that day because you were just like so done because I was not your first time meeting up with somebody.
Yeah, I had been trying to. It was really important for me. I had actually just graduated from the Jai Institute for Parenting not that long prior, right. But through all of that, I was like, oh, I really could use more community. And so, yeah, I had recommitted to putting in effort to building community. And I had also recently been burned a little bit. That places the responsibility, like, it felt bad.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand what had happened, but yeah, somebody recently on that app it felt like hitting it off, and then she ghosted me out of nowhere, and so I was like, oh no, not again. Do I want, like, this is so painful sometimes, and it takes so much vulnerability. So yeah, I was feeling like, and I had just had another where it's just, I keep trying, and it feels like it's not going well. And that's so much the reality of trying to form relationships. And I'm very glad that I showed up that day and I got back on and made another go of it.
Yeah.
And once I did,
now we're here.
Yeah. It was so great.
Yeah. So we met up and we went for a walk, and you had your 2 kiddos at the time and showed up with your little double stroller, your big double stroller. Tossing it up that big hill.
Really muscling it.
And I had mine, and your middle now.
Yeah.
He was your little then. And mine they're like almost the same age. And they had like just turned 1.
Yeah.
And then your oldest is what? He's a year and a half older than your middle?
Yeah. 22 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was, we went for a walk and we were just chatting and sort of getting to know each other. And then.
But it felt so good.
It felt easy.
From the jump, it felt really easy. And I know we said it last time, and I'm going to say it right again. Just after meeting you, as I was driving away, I think I texted from the car. I texted.
In the parking lot?
Yeah, I texted somebody, I think I'm in love. With who? My new friend Becky. We talked for 3 hours. Could have talked for 3 more.
Yeah.
How it felt, and we haven't stopped talking since.
It's true,
and it's been years.
It's very true. Yeah. We just hit it off so much right away, and there was just so much in common, and also. Like for a while, I feel like it was like this unspoken commitment to like showing up authentically. We both like it was there.
Yeah.
But then like as we got more into it, it like started to be more explicit.
Yeah.
That we were being really intentional about the way that we were showing up in this friendship.
And I think for me what made it so clear from early on that it was something meaningful was because we were both already had independently come to the place where we were identifying as like conscious parenting folks. To be at that point already implies so much.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of subtext that didn't need to be spoken about, but as soon as you started talking conscious parenting stuff,
Yeah.
and I was talking conscious parenting stuff, it's like, okay, so she already knows about secure attachment.
Yeah.
I already know the value of secure attachment.
Yeah.
We're talking polyvagal theory. We're talking this, that, and the other thing. And so it's, even though those things are like academic concepts, it implies so much about your values.
Yeah.
And about how you want to show up in relationship, even though we were both looking at it from a parent-child perspective.
Yeah.
And that's how we were talking about it. But I think that's, for me, that's what I identify as all of the green flags there were, because if you value those things in a parent-child relationship, I imagine you probably value those things in a peer-to-peer friendship as well.
Definitely. And I think that, it just sort of, like you said, like, it was like all in like an academic fashion, but it sort of laid the subtext of what was shared between us.
Yeah.
And then as we, got to know each other more and hung out more and had like our slow burn into what it is now, 3.5 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later,
No,
4 years later. 4 years later.
I trust you with the timeline.
I don't know.
Of our relationship.
Anyways. It's just, we started out with just, it was clunky. It was hard in the beginning. But it was not hard.
What we were talking about was the formality of it.
Yeah.
And the talking, feeling like we were using scripts a bit, but just because it was so new.
Yeah.
The way that we were attempting to show up in friendship.
Yeah.
It's not like neither of us had ever had a friendship before.
Totally.
But I was coming into it with new intentions for a friendship and new self-awareness. I had identified a lot of patterns and like the whole, I hesitate to call it love bombing because that's not what it is, but that front loading with all of the intensity of let's get enmeshed.
Yeah.
It was not that.
Yeah.
It was definitely a more cautious optimism.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I felt. And the reality is I was practicing discernment for the first time ever. And I was going, this feels really good.
Yeah. And
I don't want to throw everything into it. I want to practice my discernment and slow down a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny now that you're like talking about that at the time, I don't know that I was like as intentional with like knowing that I was practicing discernment, knowing that I was coming at it with something like a little bit more intentional. But like in hindsight, when I look back, it's like, no, that is what I was practicing and all the things that I had like been talking about in therapy and like really working towards. But I like didn't know in the moment that I was doing it. But yet being able to do it with somebody else who was also doing it. Like it just allowed us to practice it together. Because I know for both of us it was a fairly novel experience, and still like it still is. Like we still have so many like new novel experiences between the two of us. Of what safety and security can feel like, and what that like safe relating can feel like. And I think that it's interesting reflecting back that, like you said, like you came in really intentionally knowing that you were wanting to build community, and I didn't know that I was needing that. I didn't know that's what I was seeking until it like turned into that, and then it's like, oh, that's what it was. Like that's the piece that I was looking for, and I'm so glad that I got it. And that but we've poured into it. I mean, like I know we talked about how it's like it's not without effort. We're not here without effort.
There's tending required. And especially talking about the seasonal nature of both of our personalities and the ebbs and flows that happen in the winter. I want to go turtle mode. I just want like, the default setting for me is to just hide away and go really quiet and I'll emerge in the springtime.
Yeah.
And so through the winter, I feel like there's a lot of tending energy.
Yeah.
But it feels steadfast, and I know we'll talk spectrum of consent at some point, but it feels all very willing.
Yeah.
I'm totally willing. There's so many good reasons to keep tending to what is rich and sweet here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that as we've like built, it's funny that you mentioned the like seasonal bit, because it's funny that we're doing this in the spring, this like next level up in our friendship, but then also that we met in the spring, like this feels so fitting. I like just tied that together right now. But also
interesting to try.
I know.
I'm curious.
Yeah, well, even just thinking of like our first winter together, and then our second winter together, and now we just had our third winter, and it's like I feel like we
again.
Yeah, and it's just I feel like the second time it came around, we were like, expecting that there was going to be more slowness, and like because I also need to winter in the winter time, but there's still like a little bit of like tension there. This last winter, I don't know, we've like actually addressed it before, like now,
right?
But like this winter felt like we managed to stay connected, even with the separation, like even with like not being together as much, and there wasn't as much like energy flow between us. But like, I mean, in the spring, our voicemails back and forth, they're like multi times a day. But then in the winter, it's like we hear from each other like once, twice a week sometimes.
And I think it's the beauty of the parts that felt clunkier or more scripted in the early days makes way for the safety. Going through and doing the bits in the winter, the first year or the second year, of saying, I hear your low capacity. I'm also very low capacity. I can like checking in with each other.
Hey, can't talk today, but sending love your way. Like you're on my mind.
But doing all of that, leading to the trust that it's actually okay to show up however we are. When we're rooted in the values that we both have around this relationship, and not just this relationship, all the relationships. And I think that's one part that feels so good about our relationship, is that it does not feel like this one solo thing. It feels so part of everything else and reflective of everything else. All the efforts that we're putting into other spaces feed into this, and also benefit from
big flow
what's
back
here.
And forth.
It is just very
there's so much flow
nourishing.
Which I think I think that like segues well into like part of what is so rich and sweet here is how resourcing this friendship is in not just ways that like make me a better parent and like that's like such a huge part of it, but also like for me as a person, as a human, and like so much more connected to myself, so much more connected to like nature, so much more connected to my partner, so much more connected to my family. There's just like I'm so much more open to connection because of the resourcing and the like safety that I've learned here. And it's like what you're talking about with like the secure base, that like we always have this to come back to.
Totally. And it is the safety and the trust that is built here is mirrored in so many different places. And it inspires me to, like, it also lets me know when something is amiss. If that makes sense.
I feel like it's my discernment has gotten even better of being able, instead of because we have been allowed to show up so authentically here and have it be safe and held and okay and still like experience belonging. I'm like not willing to accept much less than that in other spaces. Because and like that just brings me back to like, that's good information to know, the phrase that you always use of like, I will show up as me in all of these spaces, and if that is not for you, I'd rather know that now than in 6 months after we've poured a bunch of time and energy into this. And instead I can scoop that energy up back for myself and put it somewhere where I do get that the things that I am needing, and you can scoop up yours and take it back and get it where you need it. And we only can get that. We only can like get to that level of discernment when we are showing up with that like rooted in authenticity piece.
And I think that's one of the reasons that I feel so excited about doing Pretty Conscious. As many places as you can have, even if it is in this not exactly relationship, the parasocial kind of relationship space, to have another space where you can connect with your authentic self. Or at least feel like you have the permission to show up as your authentic self. So that you know what it feels like when you can't. And it's not saying that in life we always 100% of the time can do that. But I want to offer and model, because I've had people model it for me, what it actually looks like to show up authentically. And not just to show up authentically in isolation, but show up authentically in
belonging and relationship.
And that's what I didn't experience as a mom until we met and started connecting. And that's what I wish I had seen, because I feel like in a lot of spaces, and it's so easy with social media, I feel like in most parenting advice or most parenting pages, you're seeing a person, and a person with the veil of, this is my social media presence, this is who I am. I loved when I saw your page and saw the work that you were putting out, because I did see,
there still was that for sure.
Still some of that, absolutely. But even what draws me to accounts is when you can see that there's more candid. There's less of that, what I want to present versus what is real here.
I think that's something that we're hoping to like create here with Pretty Conscious, is allowing people a like window into what is real for other parents and normalizing that for them.
And specifically for folks who are trying to parent in a more conscious, like in a conscious parenting. Because I feel like there are accounts that are, I feel like it goes.
I know where you're going with this.
I feel like people are willing to show what's real, but when I see those accounts, I'm like, I admire the authenticity, and also we are so misaligned in values when it comes to parenting. And so it's like. I still like them though. Like I still yes, stuff is messy, and I'm committed to everything about conscious parenting, and like I still want to get to that place. I don't know if that's where
that's exactly where I thought you were going. Was just there's like so much out there that's like, okay, sure. Like I feel like with social media, we like swung so far from like perfect to people being like, oh no, I'm gonna like show the realities of it. I want to be relatable. But then like in that relatability, we like what was lost or maybe didn't exist there for some of these folks
Yeah.
at any point, whatever,
Yeah.
was that like deep respect for
Yeah.
our children.
Yeah.
And the like honoring of the relationship.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And I think you're right. I think it's the pendulum swing from, because I was going to say the other flavor is that we have like a lot of gentle parenting spaces that makes it look like sunshine and rainbows. And there's so much rich stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much positive intention in a lot of those spaces. And I need to talk to somebody who will be honest about what is here.
Yeah.
About the messiest moments.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
not
suck.
all that.
Yeah.
And it's not all that.
Yeah.
But the hope is to create a space. The intention is to create a space where we can talk about everything.
Yeah.
Including the messy bits.
And what's really cool is that once we start to talk about, like I've noticed this, that once we start to talk about the really like messy, ugly parts, you actually start to like, there's so much beauty in the depth that nuance provides.
Yeah.
And so sort of allowing for, that beauty to arise by allowing what is real and messy and raw to exist. And I think the part that makes it beautiful is, and I get to exist in connection and belonging within it.
Right.
And so I think that's like one of the things that we are hoping to provide with this is the people get to like sit in on that feeling of you get to belong with all of it.
Like we can say the ugly bits.
Yeah.
And still
be pretty conscious.
Pretty conscious. And stay in belonging and stay in connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important because that's so much of what our parenting experience is too. Is that we're going to have these ugly moments.
Yeah.
But you still get to belong here with me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like part of what our friendship has like allowed me the safety to then go out into other relationships in my life.
Yeah.
With the trust of actually relationships can hold a lot.
Yeah.
When we are coming from this place.
Yeah.
Of intentionality and recommitting and all of it.
Yeah.
That it gets to all be here. And we can talk about best practice or whatever, but we don't live in a best practice world. We live in the messiness of being humans relating with other humans who all have our own stories and our own narratives and our own past and our own temperaments and
I feel like that's something we were touching on it when we recorded the first time about how what's so valuable here is talking about the nuance and talking not just advice giving, but talking through hey, I know these are the best practices, but I can't get there because of these circumstances. Can you help me find a pretty conscious way to approach it?
Yeah.
And I feel like another component of that I'm thinking about now is that in conscious parenting, I think what was so amazing to me when we very first met was that I had not found another parent who was as aligned in parenting approach as you and I were already, like from the jump. And so I think that is a factor when you talk about conscious parenting specifically, because it's not even 1 in 10. I don't think who are truly, who have taken the paradigm shift of parenting with relationship at the center rather than behavior at the center. And so it's really hard, I think. I just don't want to minimize how hard it is and how grateful I feel that we connected. But how hard it is for just the everyday person who, if you are more conscious parenting aligned, to find somebody else who's parenting in that same or even a close enough way. I feel like it's so very challenging. And it was a game changer, a life changer to see you show up the way that you do with your child, and to be able to feel like there was a place for me to show up being the parent that I am with my kids in front of somebody who valued what I was doing, who saw the same beautiful moments that I saw in the reality of everything. And it just felt so nice to have a place where I could be seen, understood in my parenting experience. And I hope that that is something that we can offer to people. I can't imagine being in a rural location, just feeling so isolated and trying to parent this way, and feeling like I didn't have any of those spaces. I remember what it felt like to be so lonely in that way, and to meet parents at the park and feel like, oh, we have so little in common. I thought having kids would be a more unifying experience than it was.
It is. It can be so isolating and makes it so much like it takes something that's already so hard and makes it harder.
And especially when we're talking conscious parenting, and a lot of what we talk about is intergenerational patterns and things, and so it can stir up all these things in your own family of origin dynamics and throw off even sibling relationship things. And I would never put the toothpaste back in the tube. And that stuff is real. And so having resources, it's one of the things that I think is worth calling out about conscious parenting, that it is a privileged place for some folks to be, if because all that is implied there. It is a privilege to be able to squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube. And we all require community. And so if we can't find aligned enough community, it totally makes sense if you just need to maintain whatever community is possible for you. There's
no shame around like whatever community it is that you are finding. It's just knowing that like and like it can feel however it feels. And wanting to share a little bit of how we know this feels. I think is
like, it feels I feel compelled to share it out, like you mentioned, even if it is just helpful to one other person.
It feels less like sharing out and more like inviting in. That's like what I'm
I agree.
Of like, I want to invite in whoever could use this in whatever way they want to use it as. You have to cough. Sorry. Just I want to invite whoever in wants to come in and feel a little bit of what is rich and sweet here. Do you want to talk a little bit about like the feelings that like we want people to?
I think that's where I was already
where your brain was going.
I was feeling into that piece. I hope that it feels a little bit like relief. Like I'm hearing them say thoughts that I've had solo out loud. I feel like I want them to feel like it's all the whole, if it's mentionable, it's manageable thing. It's getting mentioned. Oh my gosh. They said it out loud. And especially in this space, it's so easy for this space to become a toxic positivity kind of space. And there is so much delight in it.
There is so much. Like it's so easy to just like talk about how amazing it is, because there is so much of it that's that.
And to talk about the lessons learned. And all of the growth that is. And we can also talk about the hurt and the pain and the heartbreak that happens in it. And we still choose it. and it can really suck sometimes.
Yeah.
And so to have, I want, yeah, that's something I didn't mention the first time around, but that feels like an important part of it.
Yeah.
And I want people to feel like they're talking with friends, or like they're just the quiet one in the group at that moment.
Yeah.
And talking with
Yeah,
friends.
like they're on the third seat here on the bed with us.
We
in the
express
full
that. Like,
triangulated, not in the bad way. A little triangle here with us.
Yeah. Because it's very much, even though we do nerd out and we have both our special interest areas that we have done deep dives in.
Yeah.
We're not coming at it from the let me educate you space. We're coming at it from, we are having these conversations as friends.
Yeah.
To support each other in our life, our process of living, of being human.
Our human experience.
And some of that is parenting. And because of our special interests, we do talk a lot about parenting.
Yeah.
As part of that.
I think that like part of why a lot of it comes back to parenting and a lot of the parenting stuff goes back to life is, I know we talked about like the interconnectedness of it all, like the web of how we're not parenting in silos.
Yeah.
That like I am a person who has my family of origin, who has a career, who has financial stressors, so social stressors. I'm in a relationship with my husband. Like there's like parenting doesn't happen separate from all of that.
Right.
And it all impacts each other.
Yeah.
And so that's why it matters when we are talking parenting to talk about the all of it. Because you can't just fix the one part of parenting. You can't fix the parenting part.
Yeah.
And ignore the rest because it is all woven together.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's what drew me into conscious parenting specifically is the acknowledging the all of it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that similarly would have to be a part of a conscious parenting kind of focus.
Totally.
Podcast would be that there has to be room for all of it. We're looking at all of it. That's a part of the parenting process. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just think, if I like go back to what you were saying about like feeling, like what feeling do I hope that the podcast invokes for those who choose to listen in is, like you said, a sense of like community in the like weird parasocial way, but like, and like that belonging of like, I can belong, this can exist, a feeling of like a sense of that like safety that comes from social engagement. And I know that we've talked about too that like a lot of our conversations, like part of the reason we're starting a podcast is because there's so many conversations that we said that like, oh man, I wish that we had recorded this so we could go back and listen to it. So I could go back and listen to it again.
Yeah.
Because sometimes just the act of like listening to the social engagement, listening to the active process of the processing instead of like just the end result, but like listening to the active process can be so powerful in like helping you resource through those challenging moments.
Yeah.
And I know that we talked too about like the cyclical nature of parenting, that like I'm having an issue with something now and in a year it's going to be that, but like just a different flavor.
Yeah.
And to be able to have those conversations to go back to.
Yeah.
And so I hope that like other people can get a sense of that like safety and tapping into some of that, like some of the conversation stuff that we I hope that they can tap into some of what we get from the conversations that we have, and that I feel
functioned as a resource.
Yeah. And even when I go back and listen, because I know we do have a couple like recorded things together.
Yeah.
And even when I've gone back and listened to those, it's like, oh yeah, like this is so helpful.
Yeah.
Like I feel so helped by this and like held in this, even, you know, if it's not necessarily my thing that we're necessarily talking about, it still is really helpful to listen in to a conversation in the like intentional way that we at least try to practice having them. Yeah, like the
Yeah. And with conscious parenting, it's so much not a one right answer approach.
Yeah.
And so I think also what's really helpful is just having the conversations. It's more like a teaching you how to think, not what to think scenario is what always comes to mind. So it's like when I watch back things that we've recorded previously, it's more, a lot of times it's more so helpful because just gets me back in the mode like, okay, but how are we breaking it down?
Yeah.
How are we looking at it? What lenses are we applying here?
Yeah.
That I find really helpful. And I think is really helpful. I will pitch things to you.
Yeah.
When I'm low capacity, I'm like, here's the scenario. What would you do? I am absolutely tapped. I can't get there.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's because I'm so activated by the situation that I literally am not
your brain's
able
gone
to access as much of my cortex. And so sometimes I will just pitch it to you, and to just be able to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
That's hugely
yeah.
helpful, and just hear how you would process it and what things you're looking at. And oftentimes that's what you send in response is, well, these are the things that I would feel like would be important.
Yeah.
And so it's not ever like a, hey, what would you do? And you tell me step by step, here's what you should do.
Yeah.
And that's very much what I want it to feel like here. Is like, well, whatever scenario.
Yeah.
Here's the things that would feel important to me to address.
Yeah.
Or to look into. Here's the questions I would want to ask.
Yeah.
Here's what it would, what I would want to know more about.
Yeah. And even just getting to like watch each other's processing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And like that kind of goes back to, it's not the like polished social media face.
Yeah.
But it's the like real in the moment.
Yeah.
Here's this thing, and here's like when we send voice messages back and forth to each other, that like, you know, you'll present a scenario and it's like I hop on the voice message without knowing what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And then just sort of process through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when you do that, like with me, that it feels really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because it just sort of like gets the gears moving in a way that maybe they weren't. It like graces them up a little bit.
Totally. And I think there is real value in connecting with the support of community when it's not coming from, when it's committed to authenticity and transparency, and when it's someone whose scenario you can really relate to and it's happening in real life. It's not happening from, you know, my kids are all adults now, but when they were kids, I remember doing it this way. Yeah. And it's like, oh, but what were the visceral parts of it? Yeah. What was the temperature of your body? Yeah. When you were doing that? I'm on fire. Yeah. You know?
I needed to take off most of my clothes.
Did you deliver that perfect script before or after you stripped down to the smallest layer? So I think that is all really important.
Well, and it's so easy to like 2020 hindsight.
Yeah.
And like be able to see the start to finish.
Yeah.
And forget about some of the messier bits, the ugly bits, the parts that like felt real crunchy.
Yeah.
Real spicy.
Yeah.
But living in it and allowing that to be the reality is like pretty powerful, I think.
Yeah. And I feel like there's so many components of the somatic processing the somatic part of parenting that gets lost in the recollection when we're looking back and we're reflecting back on it and not processing it in real time.
Yeah.
Because those are some of the most powerful barriers to being able to apply strategies.
Yeah. That's so true.
I think, and also that's where I have benefited the most from having a model to demonstrate what does it even look like to incorporate somatic work into parenting.
Yeah, or parts work into parenting, or inner child work into parenting, or
you need to shake it out.
Yeah.
What does that even look like? What do you mean?
Totally.
So I feel like that's another component that I feel like can be very powerful here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also feeling compelled to talk about the timing of like doing this now.
Yes.
Because we touched on that a lot.
Yeah.
And we've had these inclinations
to work together.
Yeah. Throughout.
Since day one.
Since the first meeting. And I think I literally invited you. I think I pitched to you. Would you ever want to do a group together? Would you ever want to host a group with me? A group coaching container? And ever since then, I like how you described how we've been kind of playfully kicking it back and forth over time. And I'm so glad that we trusted our discernment. And it would have felt like we were jumping the gun for me. Yeah. Anytime up until now. Even when I was the one pitching it. Totally. Kind of hoping you would
bite.
Yeah. And I think we're in such a good place now where we've both taken our own separate paths. Yeah. And tried to combine our passion for conscious parenting with income creation at some point in lots of different ways. We've both done a lot of trial and error and whatever, and come to this place where we've both realized, and I'm only speaking for you because I confirmed it the last time, and that it was okay that we talked about this part. But it feels really good to be coming at it from a place where Pretty Conscious is not something that we are putting any pressure on. Yeah. And there's no pressure on it to provide any kind of income. That just makes it feel so much more aligned with the intention of the space. Yeah. That like, this is not, for me, this is not an income producer. Yeah. In its intention. Yeah. So, and being able to come to it without those like pressures and the conditions and the need for it to be anything, it's really important to me that we're coming at it from a place now where we focus on the relationship and not the outcome, not what we're producing. Yeah. It is just, I keep seeing this quote about, we can toxically focus on the healing and the growth and whatever. Yeah. And if we just focus on the relationship, those things are symptoms of that. Yeah. And so it is just like, I want to lead from the relationship and just not having the financial components be. And I think it's important for transparency. Absolutely, yeah. That we talk about that part. Yeah. Because so much, I get the ick so often when I'm like, is this all just a lead up to pitching coaching to me? Yeah. And it's like, yes, I want to make all of that available, but it's all going to be from the veil of transparency. Or from without the veil. Without the veil. Without any kind of veil of manipulation or anything. So it is very much inviting in. Yeah. And to what we're already doing, and it's not putting on a show and creating something with that as a purpose. I keep thinking of like a couple words. First is that like this feels more like an emergence because there isn't the pressure and like we're not forcing anything. Right. There's still effort being put in, there's still work being put in, but it doesn't feel forced. So it feels like it's emerging or expanding from us and what we already have. Yeah. And then the other thing that keeps coming up is all of like the things around play and how like play is freely chosen. Yeah. You're allowed to quit at any time. Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
like you get to like make the rules together.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to think. Peter Gray has like 7 rules or like the 7 components of like true play. I'm like trying to tap into those. I don't know that I can name all 7 right now, but that's what it feels like we're doing here.
Yeah.
Is like there's such a component of it that is play.
Yeah.
For us, and I think that that's like another thing that I hope people feel when they are listening to the podcast, that like it's not coming from a place of like obligation to be a better parent,
right?
But from a place of like, this feels good.
Yeah.
So I want to do this.
Yeah.
Like going back to spectrum of consent stuff. Like I want to be here listening to this podcast. And if it's not the one for me, I know I have the agency to leave at any time.
Yeah.
And knowing that like it's something that we are co-creating, but then we're also like co-creating in this community.
Yeah.
And trusting that it will be dynamic and flow in the ways that it needs to.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly where it's going. Like I don't necessarily see exactly the path of what Pretty Conscious is. And I think that's like why we wanted to get on and record an episode like this one.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't like, oh, let's just dive in with our first topic.
Right.
Because we are co-creating this space.
Yeah.
And part of what we're doing is the process. And this is the process.
Yeah. We agreed. We didn't want to get too far into the mapping of what, where we wanted to go with Pretty Conscious without at least first sharing the conversation about what is it to us.
Because that's really what Pretty Conscious is going to be about, is that process.
Yeah. Well, and when you were talking about play, it just brings, I cannot remember who gives this definition of play, but it's essentially being able to follow your curiosity without fear of judgment. And that feels so much like the play part.
Yeah.
This is following my curiosity. This is wanting to dig deeper. This is wanting to explore ideas without fear of judgment. And
or failure.
I would just say like in lieu of fear of judgment or failure, I would say with safety.
Yeah.
With the safety of belonging, with the safety of community.
Yeah. And connection and relationship and
yeah.
And I think, it feels really exciting for me, and I'm sure that we'll do plenty of episodes on play, but it feels particularly exciting. I have a very complicated relationship with play, as you know. And this feels really exciting because like I feel in my bones that like I am playing.
Yeah.
And like I get that giddiness from feeling like I'm playing. Which is it's just really exciting.
Yeah.
It's such a trite word for the feeling that I'm experiencing. But there's like so much like, energy flowing up through my like core. I think that's a really important part to talk about. And talk like you said, talking about the fact that there isn't, because we have both gone down the path of our own explorations in conscious parenting and coaching and trying to like have it be financially lucrative. And the more that I tried to make it that, the less I felt tapped into the passion I have for this topic.
Yeah.
And the less I felt tapped into like play.
Yeah.
The less it felt like play.
Yeah.
And removing that pressure and allowing this to come now versus before when I was experiencing that pressure. It feels safe to do now.
Yeah.
And similarly, I'm very glad that we trusted our discernment on that, and that we're doing it now. It's been marinating for a while.
Yes.
It's been marinating for a while, and it just feels I think I used the analogy last time of like we started with like pretty barren soil between the two of us in knowing how to relate in secure ways and communicate in secure ways. And we've been tending to it and tending to it and tending to it. It feels like something new is ready to.
Bursting.
Yeah.
It feels bursting.
Yeah, something new is definitely sprouting now. So I'm just so excited for what Pretty Conscious is going to be. I'm excited to like see what it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to looking back a year from now.
I'm
such a nostalgic, sentimental human.
Yeah.
Going back and watching this a year from now. I'm so curious.
Yeah. I agree.
Where it will go.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just so like similar to how we like, you know, look at our kids and like, I can't wait to get to know you more.
Yes.
That's what this feels like. That's my relationship that I have to Pretty Conscious.
I described my relationship to the community that I created for people raising kids that way. Is that like it feels like another child of mine that I'm just like my only job is to tend to it and nurture it well as well as I can. Yeah. And show up with commitment and stay open for what it needs to become. Yeah. And let it emerge.
Yeah.
And evolve.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to get to see and know Pretty Conscious more. Like it's just the beginning, but it has that same spark of like newborn baby of like, oh, there's so much here and I don't know where it is yet.
Just looking at it.
Like there's just a lot of delight in this moment.
100%. And even with the frustration today of we recorded an hour-long episode already, and then
for a walk around the block,
guiding us, but coming back and and the conversation's totally new this time.
And it's still felt good.
I think you said I'm excited also to come back and set the container and talk more about the things, the core values, not from a religious place, but just core values, our unique, paired, co-created core values for Pretty Conscious. And what we're doing here. And I think we already spoke to so much of it. So much of it is baked into our backstory, like into how we got to this place.
But I think, being able to like flesh out more of what our mind map was, like the branches of the mind map. We like covered the middle circle, but all the branches of the mind map and sort of some like more specific intentions and values and like what we're going to hold, what the container can hold. And like the what things are we committed to as we stay open for it evolving into different directions. I think that, I know that we'll talk about this too, but that it's important for both of us to have an episode like this and an episode like the next one for transparency. Because I've experienced that like transparency between you and I is what has created a lot of the safety, a lot of the not having to guess what is happening, not having to like be unsure. And so putting like just a lot of transparency out there and starting with these very like transparent values and like here's what we're going to cover and like here's our commitments and and we'll let you know if any of that changes because life is dynamic. But also just like starting with that I think is really important to create that container of safety that we want to create. So
we'll do our best to give you all the information it would be good for you to have. That so you can make a good solidly informed choice.
And if you want to be here with us. I love that. Is there anything else you think of that you'd like to add? I think
it's pretty complete, I think. For me.
Feels good to me.
Cool.
We did it. We did 2.0. Love you, friend.
Bye.
Hey, we know time is hard to come by. Thanks for spending some of yours with us. And remember, you can always reach out. We're real people and we're interested in what's real for you too. Do you have questions or feedback? Anything you'd like to hear a chat on? Check the show notes for where to find us.